Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. I'm Steven Browne and we're chatting all things Leeds United. And I'm delighted to say joining us back on the show is the Athletics Nancy Froston. Welcome back, Nancy.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming on again. Now, if you're watching along, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, retweet and all that good stuff. Nancy, we're going to get straight into it because the season is not too far away now, just 3 days till the Portsmouth game at home. Obviously, lots of interest in what's happening in terms of transfers, incomings, outgoings, which we will obviously cover off. But just to kind of round up the pre-season games, obviously we just had the game at the weekend against Valencia, which I actually did go to. Leeds United winning 2-1 in what was a bit of a narky, niggly game. I was surprised at how kind of aggressive it was, actually, particularly from the Valencia players. What did you make of it?
Yeah, it was like it wasn't a friendly, was it at all? I was messaging someone I work with who's a Leeds fan, and he was like, "I'm pretty sure there were red cards the last 2 times Leeds and Valencia played as well." So if his memory's right, then we possibly got the least friendly matchup ever there. But yeah, it was weirdly feisty. I don't mind that though. Like, it was quite good. You could see Ethan Ampadu, throwing his weight around a bit, and I'll get him ready for the season, won't it? But as for a game, I thought it was pretty good level. Leeds obviously played really well. Obviously, it petered out a bit at the end, but you kind of expect that. But I thought it was really encouraging. 2 really well taken goals, and probably the starting team for me for this weekend. If he does drop Joseph, I'll be stunned and and kind of gutted in equal measure for him because he's done everything right in pre-season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, has he scored in every game, I think, so far, bar the Harrogate game, possibly.
Apart from Harrogate,
yeah. It was a good test, and I mean, we've got to mention Georginio Rutter as well, who, I mean, he just blew me away. I mean, this guy, I think he's kind of, with all the noise around Summerville and what's happened there, I think he's kind of, people have forgotten, we've got this other really super talented player who contributed massively last season. I mean, the goal, Nancy, that's ridiculous. I mean, I couldn't even really take it. I was in the East stand, kind of the bottom part of the East stand, and I was kind of like, has he actually just done that? He kind of takes it round the guy twice and then lobs the player. I mean, he's such a special talent, isn't he, Nancy?
Definitely, and I don't think I'd have been alone at the point where he took, I think it's the second touch. I was like, he's gone too far. Based on last season, I just thought, oh, that's a shame. He was in a really good position, and then he's obviously chipped it so nicely that the way it's dipped, obviously, between the defender and the crossbar, it's sublime. But all you can ask for him is more goals, isn't it? Really, last season, I think he, apart from that, everything else was where you'd want it to be, and he seemed to put that pressure of the price tag and everything behind him from when he'd signed. So he's a great talent. He's a great character by the sounds of it in the dressing room, and like, if he can produce that sort of performance on Saturday and beyond, there's no reason why. I think he was in the PFA top 6 championship players, as voted for by the players that came out this week. So there's no reason why he can't be player of the season or something like that, because he's got that potential. So yeah, more of that would be grand.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you make of the booing of Verba and Aronson? Where I was sat, especially Aronson, when he came on the pitch, it sounded really loud. And I was actually watching Rutter because he was kind of on my side in the second half, and he was shaking his head at the fans because he was just, kind of, what are you doing kind of thing. I mean, is it one of them things, do you think the fans have got it out of the system now, or is this likely to be a trend that will continue until, they start putting in the performances, I guess?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think, it possibly depends on what type of fan you are. And I'm definitely someone who, whilst the player's wearing the shirt, unless they've done something really egregious, I'm inclined to support them. And so I feel you're probably not going to totally get the best out of either player by giving them that reaction, because either they'll try too hard and overdo it, or they're overthinking. And okay, in some cases it might be great motivation if they feel they've got a point to prove, but I just feel in the circumstances of creating a healthy atmosphere for the players to feel like they can thrive, it's not something that I love to see. And I know that there's a lot of healing to be done in terms of those two that have come back from the position they were in last year. But from what I heard, particularly with Aronson as well, he's kind of tainted by association just by his nationality and where he signed from and all those things, as well as leaving on loan. But it sounds like he really has committed to playing under Daniel Farker and committed to Leeds this season. So look, hopefully it was just a reminder that they've got work to do to win people around, and that's it now. And if they feature at the weekend, it won't be the same. But I do feel like positivity is always the best way until things get really bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Brendan Aronson, I think he's proposed to his girlfriend, hasn't he, in Harrogate as well? So, I mean, some kind of commitment to the area at least. I do like that. So we'll see if that plays a part. Just in terms of kind of Verba as well, I mean, because obviously you mentioned, I mean, I know Aronson, there's been quite a few pieces coming out, articles where he's saying about he wants to commit and kind of get his head down. Is there any chance, though, that Verba or Aronson could still leave, do you think, if the right offer comes in? I mean, are we at a stage where we just don't know? I mean, do you think there's still a chance that either one of them or both could leave?
I'd be surprised, definitely surprised with Aronson. Verba, I think, obviously he's come in and integrated with preseason since he came back from the Euros, and maybe at the point where he was away at the Euros, we still didn't know quite where his future was. And that's not to rule it out, but I think the fact that he's got minutes during preseason since he came back, and he clearly has that quality and in depth as well for that position. I'd be surprised at this point with those two. I think we've probably finished up with like the 49ers or the club as a whole sort of tidying up the squad and doing that element of it. So yeah, I'd be surprised, but if you said one of the two, you'd probably say Verba's the more potential for going out. But I think given what he can offer, probably keeping him is a wise choice.
Yeah, indeed. Just in terms of other potential outgoings as well, I think after the Somerville kind of exit, fans are worried, is there another big one that's due to go? We mentioned Rutter. I personally would be distraught if Rutter goes. I would be absolutely gutted, to be honest. None to a lot of speculation around him as well. Obviously, a bid from Everton, I believe, has been turned down yesterday, I think. What's kind of their status? Because they're obviously the two outstanding talents of the squad. What's your kind of take on their likelihood of staying or potentially leaving?
I mean, Leeds are quite confident they'll keep hold of both. But I imagine this will rumble on until the final day of the window, just because you're then looking at the next two most talented, most saleable assets in Leeds squad after Gray and Somerville. So this is what people expected at the start of the window, was a fight to keep hold of everyone. And from what I hear, though, Leeds feel confident. I think obviously Somerville's release clause will have come as a surprise to everyone. Particularly, I know a lot of fans were hoping for a lot more money than what they got, but I think it's probably about a fair fee, really, for what he'd done in the one season. But yeah, I think Leeds are confident. They've obviously turned down on Everton on Nonto. He's not got a release clause as far as I'm aware, or as far as I've been told. So with that, you've got the luxury of turning people down. With Rutter, there's obviously been that interest, I think, that's been reported from Brighton, but nothing has come back. Nothing serious has been kind of tabled on that. But I've also not been able to get a concrete denial on, or a concrete statement that he's not got a release clause. So, again, I think this is some of the hangover from previous regime, or there's been a lot of kind of contract bits that maybe that they wouldn't have put in had they been offering them this time round. But yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's my fear with the release clause, especially potential one with Georginio. I mean, talking about what happened with Somerville, because you're absolutely spot on. I think a lot of fans expected this huge fee. When you saw Archie go for 40, thinking, well, Somerville Championship Player of the Year, etc., etc. And this kind of release clause thing seems to have come out of nowhere. I mean, can you clarify what is the situation? How did this come about then? Was this a case of, because I've heard different things where it was something about, if the team is in Europe and West Ham were in Europe previously, and that's when they did their initial inquiry, and we've honoured that. I mean, what is the actual kind of situation here? How did this kind of come about that all of a sudden there seemed to be this release clause and Somerville's kind of gone?
As I understand it, the clause was active from the point of relegation from the Premier League. It was there, but obviously, I think everyone would admit this time last year, if the number, assuming the number was set at 25 million, I don't think anyone would have paid that for him last year based on what they'd seen, realistically, even with all the potential. But you have a 19-goal championship season and suddenly 25 million doesn't look that bad to a team that wants to sign him. So because Leeds didn't get promoted, that was still active, and it was there to be triggered. Obviously, when players have release clauses, particularly players that are doing well, Leeds aren't going to want to broadcast that, and I think they probably did quite a good job of keeping that quiet and holding on to him for as long as possible. But the reality is, as soon as a club triggers that, there's not always a lot that the selling club can do, really, because that's where it is. So I think it's, it sounds like 25 million is the least that Leeds will get. I think they've managed to get some add-ons and other bits in there as well. But again, it is probably, I think, a fair value given. 40 million for Gray, you may be whacking on a bit extra, because whether you believe it or not, because he's English, because he's, because he's a couple of years younger, or they maybe can see that there's some resale value there or something. Like, there are other factors there. Obviously, his release clause, he was a release clause as well, so they'll have set that higher. But because they'll have wanted to keep hold of him, so you make the release clauses higher and higher. Maybe the more realistic you feel the chances are of that player being wanted by the clubs. So that's kind of where it's at. It was there, and they met it, and obviously I think it's probably a decent move for Somerville in the end. But it's going to be a big step up for him, so it's a good challenge.
Yeah, I guess that's what the fear is with Rutter, isn't it? That there's like a figure there somewhere that's probably going to be a lot higher than Somerville's, because we paid 30 odd million for him anyway. So there's probably going to be maybe a figure there that if a club does hit it, that he might potentially go. Like you say, it'll probably rumble on more until that window's closed. We're just not going to know for certain, are we? Let's kind of flip it then. Let's look at some more positive news in terms of potential incomings. Obviously, the big one being talked about at the moment is the Norwich City winger, Jonathan Rowe. There's a nice little video going around on Twitter at the moment where he's kind of waxing lyrical about playing at Ellen Road as well, which is quite nice. Has this one got legs then? I mean, how kind of close is this one, or what's the kind of state of play with this? Because I saw figures Norwich wanting quite a lot of money for him, 15 million I saw somewhere, and then Leeds want to pay about between 7 and 10. What's the status on this one, Nancy?
Like, Leeds' interest is there. It's it's true. It's concrete. I think there's some expectation that there will have been £7 million offer kind of tabled. Obviously, clubs never go perfect. Yeah, shake your hand on that the first time. So I guess there's going to be some distance there. And Leeds don't expect this to be easy at all, given that I suppose Norwich will be also targeting promotion in one way or another, whether that's playoffs or automatic this year. So they won't necessarily want to sell to a direct rival, and they've sold Gabriel Sara as well. So you're looking at two of their better players. So it just depends where they're at in terms of wanting to raise some funds or whatever. I know it would be a popular one with Leeds fans for sure, because he's an exciting player. Scored, a bag full of goals as well last year. So he's the type of player that I can see Leeds wanting to, or being willing to go back for a couple of times. You saw with Bogle, it wasn't straightforward. They went back 2 or 3 times, smaller figures, because it's a defender as opposed to a winger. There's always that premium on players that can add goals. But yeah, I imagine we'll see Leeds maybe go back once or twice, but they're quite smart with their negotiations, so they'll have a list, and if they can't get in for what they want, I'm sure they've got other targets. But I'd like to see it happen.
I mean, I know we've lost Summerville from that kind of area of the pitch, but we feels like we're quite stacked in kind of that area anyway. You look at the wingers, and Aronson can play out there, etc. Rutter can play out there as well. Is there any kind of movement on any other kind of areas of the pitch? I mean, I'm looking at particularly kind of, midfield, depth at fullback. I know Farker kind of has spoken about this. I know there was the offer for Ljubičić, I think, last month, and that's kind of seems to have gone a bit quiet. Anything happening on that front at all? Do we seem to be making any other moves?
Well, I mean, they're the key areas. So basically, when we've spoken to Farker, he said probably a replacement for Somerville, fullback and centre mid. So there's nothing necessarily new on the front with Ljubičić. As far as I understand it, there's not been like a major update there. I think there was some awareness from Leeds that he'd be quite in demand. They might get outbid basically for him. I don't know whether that's from clubs in England or clubs elsewhere, but I think there was some realization that they might not, go all the way in terms of tabling the offer that Colm wanted on that. In terms of fullback, I know they're interested in Hugo Bueno at Wolves, so I think this was out there in the past couple of days as well. That'll be a loan, and again, it's a little bit tricky for Leeds because they've got that stance of not wanting to sort of guarantee minutes for Premier League loan players. I think that's fair enough, but it's just pretty common that especially Premier League clubs will ask for that. So it just depends kind of whether Wolves are willing to do that. But from the Wolves end, I asked the question and they see him as having a role to play. I think at the moment they're looking to hold on to him, but there's always that caveat that ends the conversation where they go, but it's a long window, so things can always change. But Leeds have got that interest, and I think that's the type of deal you might see, particularly for the fullback position. You might see a loan or either a less experienced player or someone like that, where you're looking at depth, because between Bogle, Byram and Firpo, they're 3 pretty good options, I think, for this level, particularly with experience. But it's just the injury worry. I think when everyone saw Jayden Bogle sit down with a dead leg twice on Saturday, heart in mouth, because he's been playing really well. So, yeah, a bit more depth needed, I think.
Yeah. What do you get a sense of Farker's mood with it all at the moment? Is he kind of still feeling very kind of bullish about it? I mean, he's obviously making reference in post-match interviews, etc., about kind of the squad, losing Gray. He's talked about that and talked about potentially losing Somerville at the weekend. I mean, what do you get a sense of how he's feeling about it all? Do you think he definitely wants something done?
Yeah, he's quite a hard guy to read because he's so calm all the time and really pragmatic. Like, I've not yet seen him ruffled, and I don't know what it would take to ruffle him, basically. But I asked him on Saturday after the game about how hard it is when, if you've sold a player like Somerville, then people know that Leeds might be in the market for someone in that position, and so how do you make sure you get fair value for money, basically, without other teams just taking the mick. And his response to that was pretty interesting. He kind of went on a big long answer about, we won't be able to spend all the money at once, and from the sale of Somerville, and we won't be able to get necessarily a like for like player, and all of that's totally fair. But he was quite cautious with the way he spoke about kind of what he's expecting this window, which I think might have panicked a lot of people when the quotes have come out, because he's not he's not going, oh yeah, we're going on a shopping spree. You know, people are a bit nervous because he's basically said that, you know, Leeds are kind of paying for some of mistakes of the past still, because you know, you can move on some of the players. Like, I think Leeds has done a good job in selling on some of the players that they don't see having a role at the club, particularly that clump that was signed during the Premier League spell. But you know, the actual finances of it are, they're probably still paying bits of that off. It's weird, you know, they'll be receiving payments on them now they've moved on, but they're also still paying. The way that the payments go is still really odd, and so, you know, that's kind of, I think, what he was referring to. So I think he's pragmatic in realizing he might not get everything he wants, but he's a big part of the kind of discussions at Leeds. It's not like he's not involved in that at all, like at some clubs. So there's a long way to go. Yeah, I think he'll probably get close to everything that they want, but
hopefully. Any word on what's happening with Liam Cooper? Because it seems crazy. I mean, he's kind of was offered a deal at the end of the season, and he's not in any kind of training videos. Have we any idea what is that? My thing was that they kind of, he's leaving and they're going to make a kind of big show of it, maybe at the weekend, you know, big send-off kind of thing. But I mean, it's kind of, you know, a lot of fans are scratching their head now. What is happening with Liam Cooper?
Yeah, I think the longer it has gone on, obviously, I think we're moving towards him leaving, but it'll be a case of finding the right point to make that public or whatever. Obviously, I guess I think the phrasing or the best way to describe it was that they were in talks at the end of the season. I don't necessarily know that you know, manifested itself in a proper contract offer that you know, that worked for the player. So he's got his options, but I think, you know, with the situation where it is, you'd be surprised if he suddenly pops up and, you know, is put pen to paper on a nice three-year deal or something. But I hope it, you know, if this is it, then one, there's clarity soon, and, you know, two, that he kind of gets some sort of send off or the reception that he deserves, because I guess these kind of soft exits for players always feel a bit weird, like especially when they've served a club for a long time. So yeah, hopefully it'll be properly sorted soon. But I think with the distance, you know, with the amount of time and the fact that pre-season started, he's not been with them as far as I understand. So yeah.
A certain way, doesn't it? So the season's about to kick off. It's Portsmouth up next. Just before we kind of get into that, looking at kind of Leeds' rivals, I guess, for promotion, automatic promotion, etc. Seeing Sheffield United doing quite a lot of business at the moment. I think kind of nervously looking over there going, oh, they seem to be cracking on and getting some decent players in. You've got kind of Luton, who I don't think have lost too many of their players. Obviously, Burnley are going to be competitive. They've got, you know, Parker in who's done this before. How do you see Leeds' chances going for potentially winning the league? I mean, I feel like a couple of weeks ago Leeds were outright favourites. I think they still are, but you know, the other clubs doing a bit of business. I mean, how do you see that land laying at the minute?
Yeah, I've done a pre-season a season prediction article, like a preview piece, and I've had to, you know, nail my colours to the to the mast or whatever, and get off the fence and make a prediction. I think Leeds will go up automatically, but I think it'll be close. I do think I don't see them sort of storming to the title and it's wrapped up by mid-April or something.
Oh, that's a shame.
But I'm very happy to be proven wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Sheffield United surprised me by the business they've done. Like, I'm quite impressed by what they've done. And considering there's all the kind of takeover drama also swirling there, like, to have done the business they've done, I think is pretty good. But yeah, no, I do think Leeds will go up. I just think that, like, I think this is probably the best squad in the Championship. What worries me a bit is the depth, sustaining 46 games of, and you know, we'll have seen this last season as well, of teams basically turning up to Ellen Road and just trying to stop you playing or kicking you to pieces and stuff like that. So yeah, getting the right kind of depth is key within the squad, but also, just being able to, I guess, push through some of the, because when they're on the day, they're epic. But I think that there's just that fear that I think it will be closer generally across the championship. The pace they had to sustain last season was ridiculous, and on any other season they'd have gone up. But I think it'll be closer across the board this year, and that'll make it a better promotion, won't it?
Oh yeah.
Nice as it is to get it done early, like if there's a massive game at Ellen Road where the crowd are giving the extra 10% probably, and something like the Leicester game last season, but if it's one where you win the title or you go up, like that's the kind of finish that everyone wants, really. But
yeah, we're just too scared.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I mean, I don't know if you share this or what you think, but kind of tactically, do you think Farke's going to be trying to do anything slightly different this season? I mean, with Rothwell coming in, and you kind of saw that a little bit against Valencia. He's kind of more forward thinking, a bit more direct possibly than kind of that Gruev Ampadu kind of role. I mean, it's hard to be critical of a manager who gets over 90 points time and time again in the championship, but I feel like almost tactically, hopefully there's maybe a little bit more flexibility this season. I mean, we've seen probably, changes in pre-season, certainly at certain times. Do you expect that there's going to be a little bit more tactical flexibility from Farke this season?
I think so. I mean, when he lined up it was Harrogate, wasn't it, with three at the back and wing backs, and everyone was like, hello, what are we getting here, kind of thing. And, it's always good to have that plan B. And I think at times, definitely in the games that I saw towards the end of the season where defensively, the ones that I saw defensively, they were sturdy, but it was kind of in front of goal where things just weren't quite gelling, and it was like, we'll give it to Summerville and let's hope he bangs one in from cutting in off the wing. A bit of over-reliance there. I think if he's playing with these things in pre-season, it's probably an indication of some options of what he might like to do. And there were so many tactical changes once basically the entire outfield squad had changed with subs in the Valencia game. There was a few tweaks there, but I think Bogle gives you that option definitely to play as a fullback, because he did last year with three at the back at Sheffield United, and I think Firpo's capable of that as well. So that's interesting. Rothwell's a really interesting sort of prospect for me, because I don't think he came away from that loan spell at Southampton and anyone was, from a Southampton point of view, was going, oh, like he's the player that got us up. But obviously he scored 4 pretty important goals, and he kind of gave a bit of depth for them over the course of the second half of the season. So I think Leeds have signed him with a view to the fact that he can add goals from midfield. And I think that's probably one of the criticisms you could have kind of put to the team last season in terms of where the goals were coming from as a general spread. You would have wanted a bit more from Rutter, Camara, or Gruev, really. So we've seen as well in some of the two Germany friendlies. Gruev got forward. I think he scored 1 in the first friendly. So he might be freed up a bit. He's never been prolific in his career, kind of scoring goals. But yeah, Rothwell adds something a bit different. And I'm intrigued to see Ampadu in midfield, like whether Ampadu and Gruev works. I know some people feel they're too similar. So there's a few things that I think there's the potential to try out. And, I think broadly the balance is there in midfield, but another signing probably just adds a bit more for me. To get the right kind of spread of goals or whatever Farke wants to see. But tactically, I think he's a good manager.
Yeah, good stuff. So just before we let you go then, Nancy, it's Portsmouth up next Saturday, 12:30 kick-off. Newly promoted Portsmouth. Any danger that they're going to be this season's Ipswich?
No, I don't think so. Ipswich is such a rare thing to go back to back. I mean, it was 12 years, I think, since Southampton did it, and Norwich just before them. So, this doesn't happen very often. And good as I think John Mousinho is as a manager. I think he's a really exciting young manager. I think they're missing Colby Bishop because he had a heart issue. As far as I'm aware, he's not back in time, and he's obviously a massive player for them. But yeah, I think I would back them to stay up, but I don't think they're necessarily going to go back to back. So yeah, I mean, this is where Leeds make up the difference based on last season, because I think if you take off the slow start of last season, you know, they'd have gone up, but the wobble at the end didn't help. But the start of the season, let's blame that instead. You know, a couple of games, was it 3 or 4 games they had to wait for the first win. So you know, there's not many teams that would be better to play than a newly promoted team on the opening day to get things going. So I don't think it'd be easy, but I would say Leeds should win this comfortably.
Yeah, absolutely. God, I hope so. Please, just start off on the right front. I've just the programme from Wembley final against Southampton has just slipped out the cupboard here and come into view, which I'm like, oh my God, that better not be an omen. I need to get rid of that straight away. Nancy, fantastic. Absolutely pleasure to chat to you again. Thank you so much for coming on. Guys, if you've enjoyed the video, please do like it. Subscribe to the channel to catch more content. Myself and Jason Booker will be back tomorrow night for our season preview as well. And please do check on the channel later tonight as well. Got some more content going out soon as well. So thank you so much for watching. I've been Steven Browne. Nancy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.